The great debate. You've got tenants long term. Do they stay? Do they go? We're going to talk about property management, long term tenants. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
A daily dilemma for a property manager. Tell us more. Tell us more. Tell us more.
Well, I guess the first thing is to determine what is a long term tenant. I think any tenancy that runs over a period, say 5 years, you have a long term tenant that is comfortable in the property. They've immersed themselves in the community, the neighborhood, the building. And I feel with landlords, agents, and tenants, when it is a long term relationship, there are ups and there are downsides
Mm.
to that. Recently, what brought this discussion on is negotiating a rent increase with a landlord where the tenancy has been in place for in excess of 8 years. There is a lot of emotion there, and the current rent is not reflective based on emotion over the years with the tenant and the landlord.
So, what's the short answer? Like, how do you, when you get when you get a landlord going, do most landlords get to that point, Cleo, where they go, actually, I've probably been too low on my rents and too loyal or generous to my tenants?
Yes, and it is usual that it happens after a few years where the landlord's kept the rent quite low. Then, like what we're experiencing now with this current market, the media portrays all the issues with housing, the rental prices going up. Landlords then become curious. We then send them a report of what their property's worth, and they're shocked. Whereas the conversation that we had last year or the year before, our recommendation wasn't taken up. And the landlord said, you know what, they've been great tenants. We hear this all the time. They've been great tenants. They look after the property. Just do $20 or just do $15. And now that $10 or $20 is really low in comparison to other properties that have been listed in this current marketplace, and they're getting $100 a week more for their property. So it does make it tough for a property manager to then negotiate that with the tenant. Maintenance is another thing with long term tenants. They put up with quirks within a property in appreciation for the landlord keeping the rent at a minimum, no increases, say for a year or two. So they don't complain about the blind cord that's broken or a loose tile that they've, just learned to step over, for example. Whereas if they do get that $50 rent increase, that's when it all comes out. Well, we've been
I
here
want to be
this
someone with
this
that. I want to be someone with that. So, and something that also I find is that it's a very short term memory because if you don't put the rent up with your tenants and you stay loyal to them for 3 years and they're saving $100 a week for 3 years, 150 a week in whatever, when that rent does go up $200 or $100 or whatever it is, and the landlord turns around and says, "Yeah, but you've had really good rent for a couple of years," doesn't matter.
No, it's a big chunk for the tenant to then have to come up with, for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when the rent's being kept at a low or reasonable, it doesn't mean the tenant's then saving that money, saying, well, I could be paying this, I'll put that aside just in case. They're not. The lifestyle is easier for the tenant. They might put that money elsewhere. And then it seems somewhat unfair from a tenant when a landlord then decides to change the circumstance and increase it up to market value. In
There's no thank you for the landlord though.
There's no thank you for the landlord.
It's
Sometimes the
generally
agent,
like, "Oh my god, the rent's just I've just been whacked. Like, what the hell?"
It's true. It is that short-term memory. We did have a lot of tenants during COVID where the owners were very empathetic. They gave them grace periods of rent. They, didn't increase. You couldn't increase rents, but even the year after, we didn't get a lot
Yeah.
of rent increases. I think there was a period of 2 to 3 years with some of our properties we managed where landlords were empathetic. Tenants were getting back on their feet with employment. Some working from home. A lot of the landlords were empathetic. And then, yes, it is true and unfortunate that tenants do forget that there was that time. Not all. Some are very appreciative and they say, you know what, I knew this was coming. That's fine. I'm happy to stay on. Because they do remember that grace period. So it is all case by case. It's also interesting, the landlords that have owned property for a long time, they are the ones that are more emotional with their tenants. I feel like the baby boomer generation and the people that have a little bit of cushion do, reward tenants in a different way. But it is different for the first time investors when that bank is on your door. You can't afford to be empathetic. So unfortunately for them, that churn of tenants, it's transactional. It's not an emotional thing.
So, who do you want to be? Cozy cash flow or hit the headache? Tenants, which ones do you want? If you're a landlord,
If I was
You can't be Switzerland to say in between.
a To be fair though, if I had a really old house where, houses in particular, where there's a lot of maintenance things, I'll have the cozy tenant without the headache. I don't want to be replacing roofs and gutterings and piping and plumbing and all the quirky things that come with living in an older house. So in that retrospect, I would go the cozy tenant, the long-term tenant. Happy to, have that tenant. But yeah, no, if I was an investor in this current market, in a unit block and things like that, I would definitely go the headache and churn through those tenants. Don't hate me, tenants.
Oh, it's a hard science. Look, I guess I love the word market value because that's the diplomatic approach for the tenants, for the landlords. It is what it is. It's got to be at market value, and it just is what it is. So I'm probably more so the headache. Like pushing those rents and creating headaches for myself. With tenants out there, but supplying a good standard of property. You saw me just didn't unnecessarily put air conditioning in one of my properties. I think it's just good to keep the standard above
For
average,
sure. Beg your pardon?
above average.
Oh yeah,
Do you know
above
what I mean? Like,
average. Yeah.
rather than, when you can see it fall before below average, you're like, nah, better paint it, better carpet it. So, message out there to landlords, I guess, would be, guys, keep your standards high. We look after your properties, maintain your properties, and bring those rents to market value. And I guess the message to landlords is, if you want, if you want to, if you don't want to poke the bear, keep the rents below market.
Yeah, and for all our long-term tenants, I just want to say, we always have tenants, especially at Novak, where we've been in the business such a long time. We put long-term tenants in other properties all the time. They might be 5 years in one property, we know them, we love them, and then we find another property if the landlord's circumstances change. So there is a benefit for that as well. We do have a relationship and we do find tenants to move on into other properties that we manage. Where the tenant that you've only had for 1 year and you don't know so well, I mean, you will extend yourself, but it'll be normal application process. Where if some of my tenants I've had for 5 or 6 years, if the landlord's selling or whatever, I will call other agents. I will help them find their next dream home. So yeah, it's case by case as well.
Expert property manager, news reporter, Cleo Wish here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Hopefully that helps some landlords and tenants out there today.
Bye.
Take care.